Alright guys, welcome to episode 15, I believe, of reflecting on a daily Bible verse. So we're going to dive in today into 1 Chronicles 29:12. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are strength and power to exalt and give strength to all. So we're going to kind of talk about what this means, how this applies to our lives. We're going to try to interpret this, at least I'm going to try to the very best of my ability, and kind of break this verse down. I read this verse this morning. I reflected upon it. I thought about it. I made some notes on it. So I'm going to share those notes and thoughts with you. And, of course, my hope in putting together these verses are to empower you, enlighten you, enrich your life in some way. I have found this to be a meaningful component of my day, and that, taking the time to reflect on one verse. I also like to take the time, pick up the Bible, read some of it, reflect upon that, listen to lectures regarding, biblical extractions, if you would, different components of the Bible. I also like to try to spend some time, reading a book every day that in some way adds to the benefit of my life. I also like to listen to lectures from, college professors and in all different types of topics. But if I feel like some component of it can add to my life, add to my relationships, add to my businesses, add to my trading, add to whatever it is I do on a daily basis, I believe that we have a moral responsibility to become the best and highest versions of ourselves. And, in doing that, it causes us to aim up and aim higher. And, as I say in every one of these episodes, I don't think there's a higher aim than to aim at Christ. While I think, or I know, I will, and all of us will fall short of it if we keep striving for Christ and we keep inviting Christ into our life. I don't think that there's a way to fail, right? I think we'll experience failure in lessons, right? I think we'll experience failure in life. I think that will be part of our journey. I know that will be, I know that will be. But I think if we continually aim towards Christ in everything we do, it is the highest aim that we could possibly take. And in doing that, we should live the most meaningful life that we're able to. And a meaningful life is a life of truth, a life of hardship, a life of satisfaction. The last thing I want to do is lay on my deathbed and say, I should have or could have done something differently. Now, I know we all have regrets in life, but if we take the time to reflect on what perhaps we regret, that there may be a lesson in that we have learned from and been able to grow from and live a better life today from. And listen, I think our entire life is just a hard, difficult learning process, and that's okay. It's not meant to be easy. Those who seek an easy life, or those who seek comfort, are actively seeking essentially the end of their life. And I choose every day not to seek comfort, and I choose every day not to seek the end of my life, but rather seek the highest, moral responsibility. I'd rather seek the highest, hardest thing to do, and in doing that, I know that I continually aim up. Now, do I think I fall short of it every day? Of course I do, right? Of course I do. But I try not to. And when I come to a junction in my life, when it's time to make a decision, am I going to make the hard choice and do the right thing? And that's what I force myself to do every day. And I hope, right, that every day I become a better version of myself. And that kind of is what's going to lead us into 1 Chronicles 29:12, because this kind of talks about kind of our path to success, our path to wealth, and really who is responsible for that. While our efforts result in it, but we have to make sure that we give the glory to God in all we do. So to kind of put some context around this particular verse, this comes from a prayer of David near the end of his reign, as he prepared to hand over leadership to Solomon, and he dictated resources to building the temple. So that this is really kind of comes from a story in the Bible, as all verses do. And I went back, I read it, I kind of reflected upon that, and I'm just going to kind of share these notes with you. I think that this verse highlights David's recognition that everything, and when I say everything, I mean everything, the most simple things that we take for granted to our greatest assets and wealth that we have, that wealth, that honor, that strength, that power, all comes from God. It's not ours, right? We have to always reflect on everything, that it's not ours, it's God's. We are just simply a steward of the things that He has prepared us through hardship to manage and maintain. It's very simple, right? And this verse, I think, kind of comes back to God's sovereignty. It comes back to the generosity that He plays within all of our lives. And we all experience that day in and day out. And again, the hardship is what builds us to be able to steward the wealth, the strength, and the power that He allows us to have, right? Like, so many people want to take all the credit for everything they have, and you have to lay it all down. Genuinely. If you speak to some of the wealthiest, wisest, most wise people across the country, across the world, they give it to God because that's who deserves it, because it is His, not yours. And the arrogant people that claim it to be theirs, ironically, normally end up losing all of it, and it ends up going bad, right? So the first part of this verse, wealth and honor come from you, right? What does that mean? I think it underscores that all blessings, including financial and societal success, are gifts from God. Our effort, right, and our diligence is not unknown to Him, and it is important, but this verse reminds us that God is the ultimate source of all prosperity. Define all prosperity, right? Your health, number one, your relationships, your financial wealth, the things that you have, the life that you live, that's prosperity, right? There's a lot of people that don't live with it. A lot of people that don't live with it. But if you have something as simple as clean drinking water, you should be thankful for it. Because there is always somebody who has much, much, much less than you do. And we take so many things for granted. And it can all be taken away in a second. Right? Just the basic things that we live with today. There was a time that many people didn't live with it, and there's still a time today that most people don't live with it. And we have to always know that God is the ultimate source. So being grateful to Him for what we have must always, always, always come first. Always. Right? God helps us foster a spirit of gratitude and contentment. We have to be grateful for what He has given us. Because at the end of the day, God is the ruler of all things. Right? In this story, David emphasizes that God is the ruler of all things, makes it very, very clear, which points to His absolute sovereignty over the entire world. God's dominion extends over everything. Nations, nature, circumstances, individuals, nothing happens outside of the control of God or without His permission. Right? And that includes hardships. It's what a lot of people don't understand. They just don't get it, right? Until they have suffered some great hardship, they don't understand why. Well, perhaps it was something that God needed to put you through to mold you into the person that his will for you was set to be. Perhaps, right? I'm a big believer of that in my own life. I believe that all the hard things that I've gone through have molded me into the person I am today. I hope today I'm a much better person as a surrendered Christian to Christ than I've ever been before in my life. I hope I am. And I hope tomorrow I'm better than I am today. And I think that reflecting on these verses every single day as just a component of my reflection every day has become fairly meaningful. And I hope that as I'm sharing them with people all over the world on the internet, that it's meaningful to you as well. You know? When we face those challenges, those uncertainties, and even those moments of success, we just have to just stay focused, right? That God rules over everything. And we have to place our trust in the journey upon him. He wouldn't bring you to it if he wasn't going to bring you through it. And I really, really, really believe that, right? This verse goes on to affirm that God holds strength and power in his hands. He's not only the source of wealth and honor, but also the source of strength for all the things that we need that we're going to face in our life, on our journey, right? Our journey is to Christ, right? This is just our humanly life until we are called home. So his strength aids in bringing us to our ultimate goal. Right? Our ultimate goal is to go to Christ. This strength is not just physical, but emotionally, spiritually, enduring all the things that are going to transpire in your life. They're all going to be hard. People come to Christ, not all, but some come to Christ and hoping that through religion their life is going to be easy. No, Christ's life was not easy. Right? You have to always then revert to, if I'm going to come to Christ, if I'm going to surrender my life to him, I have to be willing to hoist the cross. That was the ultimate sacrifice of Christ's life. Are you willing to make the ultimate sacrifice of your life in surrendering to him? Are you going to be faithful to him? It's not easy. In fact, it's really, really hard. Right? You have to decide, am I willing to do that? Not everybody is. Right? But I think everybody should try to the best of their ability. I think that burden, right? Well, some would call it a burden, I guess. Well, the burden of hoisting the cross is the blessing of Christ. That's it. Right? If you understand that, you understand what surrendering to Christ is. This verse, inside this verse, it points towards God having the power to exalt and give strength to everyone. It highlights his ability to elevate people to positions of influence and honor and power. Right? And what happens when the wrong people come to influence and power? Right? You ultimately watch their lives unwind. Because they come to that power and honor only to fail. Only to suffer the biggest loss and hardship of their life because they didn't come to that surrendered to Christ. Now, when someone experiences success or is lifted to some higher status, again, God either allowed it or orchestrated it because they deserve to be there or because they were put there ultimately to fail. It's one or the other. Either you've risen from a position of being surrendered to Christ, or you've risen to a point where you will ultimately fail. It's one or the other. We see it all the time, right? We see celebrities and athletes come unwound all the time. And we just saw it with Sean Combs, right? We've seen it with very wealthy people. Happens all the time. Why? Well, because they didn't reach that level in life surrendered to Christ. They reached that level in life for self-fulfillment, which is the exact opposite of surrendering your life to Christ. We should show humility, right, as we continue through whatever point in our life that we're at. This is David, despite being a king with great wealth and honor, recognized that everything he had become came from God. Right? His prayer is a model of humility and a heart that acknowledges God's supremacy in every single aspect of life. Right? That's the root of this verse. That's what this all essentially comes down to. Right? It's an understanding that wealth, honor, strength, power all come from God, right? Which should have a natural response from us of gratitude. David's prayer is full of thankfulness to God for his abundant provision of taking him to where he was. Right? This gratitude also leads to generosity, as David dedicated much of his wealth of the building of the temple. So he dedicated it back to God. Right? That's again, all comes to surrendering our life to Christ through everything that we do. Everything that we do. And giving God credit for all of it. It's not ours. Right? This home isn't mine. This is God's. This life I live is not mine. It's God's. Right? The car I drive is not mine. It's God's. My marriage is not mine. It's God's. And I give it all to Him. He reigns upon it. And I know that as it's in His control, I can trust His lead as I follow it. Because His power is not limited. His power is almighty. Almighty. And the strength I have today comes from Him. The life I live today comes from Him. The marriage I have and relationship I have today comes from Him. Everything I have comes from Him. You just give it all to the glory of God. Because it doesn't matter how rich you are, this is a humbling reminder that everything we possess, wealth, honor, strength, power, all comes from God. It's all His. He is the source of all blessings. He rules over all things, right? And this truth leads us to a posture of gratitude, humility, and a dependence upon Him in everything we do in our life. And if we can continue to live in that posture, that we constantly aim up, right? Christ is God. We just aim up at Christ. There is no higher aim. We're willing to take the burden of the responsibilities, the hardship, and the pain that comes with the hoisting of the cross. From a surrendered position to Christ. We're willing to admit we're wrong. We're willing to repent for our sins. and we're willing to live the life led by Him, there is no greater meaning. And if you follow the greatest meaning, you will experience the greatest adventure, and you will live the most fulfilled life. That's all that it comes down to. That's all that it comes down to. It's the glory of God, the surrender to Christ, the hoisting of the cross, leads to maximum responsibility, the most amount of adventure, and a meaningful life that on your deathbed you can look back at and thank God for the life that you had before you are called home to Him. That's it. There's no greater meaning or purpose for your existence than that. So I wish this upon you, if you've taken the time to watch this today, tomorrow, whenever, that you surrender your life to Christ, that you are willing to allow Him to lead you to the most meaningful life that He has willed upon you. That's my wish for you. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are strength and power to exalt and give strength to all. 1 Chronicles 29:12. I hope this verse enlightened you, enriched you, blessed you in some way. I hope that the conclusions that I've drawn from it are helpful to you in understanding it. And I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. I'd love to hear from you. My email's below. Send me an email. Let's chat. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear what you're doing in your life. I'd love to hear how God or Christ has inspired you to come to God to live a better, more fulfilled life. And my hope for you is, as you go through today and every day, that everything you do, everything you see, everything you hear, everything you feel, everything you have, you give to the glory of God. God bless, guys. I will see you in the next episode. I hope you have a